Dear participants, in this presentation I will be talking about the issues in the social research. In the start, I will be talking about the different issues of the research, the science, and how the different scientific methods have entered into the social science researches, and what are the different paradigms of the research in the social science. And further, I will be talking about the differences between the qualitative and the quantitative research method and in what way they differ from one another. The goals of the scientific research. The goal of the scientific research is to discover laws and postulate theories that can explain the natural phenomena. It means कि the ultimate purpose of the scientific research is to discover laws and basically the construction of the theories or the formation of the theories which is able to explain the social phenomena into a natural setting. We arrive at the scientific laws or theories with the help of the process of the logic or the evidence. It means the heart of the scientific research is the logic and the evidence. It means कि with the help of the scientific method, we try to reach at a theory with the help of the evidence or the observations. In science, theories and observations are interrelated and cannot exist without each other. Theories provide meaning and the significance to what we observe, and observations help validate or refine existing theory and construct new theory. It means the basic function of the theory is to explain a particular phenomena, and all these explanations are based on the observation of the phenomena or the facts. Any other means of knowledge acquisition, according to the science, for example, such as faith or authority, cannot be considered as science. It means that if a particular way of investigation has to become scientific, it has to follow certain methods of the science and the certain rules of the science. Further, what is the role of the scientific method in the social science researches? The scientific method, as applied to the social sciences, it includes a variety of the research approaches, tools, and techniques for collecting and analyzing qualitative and the quantitative data. These methods include the lab experiments, case study method, ethnographic method, action research, and so forth. However, it recognizes that the scientific method operates primarily at the empirical level of the research. For example, how to make observations and analyze these observations. Very little of the method is directly pertinent to the theoretical level, which is really the more interesting part of the scientific research. It means कि if we talk about the role of the science in the social sciences, basically it focuses on the different methods for making the observation in the social sciences research rather than focusing on the validating, or we can say the construction or the formation of the new ways of doing research, and and basically developing the new concepts. Now I will be talking about how different paradigms of the social research have emerged over the period of time and how they have influenced the way of doing the research in the social sciences, or the way of doing the research in the environment and the society. Our design and the conduct of research is shaped by our mental models or the frame of references. Okay, basically they are called the paradigms. The word paradigms was basically popularized by the Thomas Kuhn in his book The Structure of the Scientific Revolution, where he examined the history of the natural sciences to identify the pattern of activities that shape the progress of science. Okay. All these paradigms are applicable to the social science as well, where a social reality can be viewed by the different people in the different ways, which may constrain their thinking and reasoning about the observed phenomena. It means कि if we are looking at a phenomena from a particular point of view, particular paradigm, it means कि reality is not an objective reality. Reality is very much subjective because this the same stimulus or the same phenomena can be observed by the different people in the different ways, which is based on their own experiences with the same phenomena or the same stimulus, and their own way of thinking or perceiving or looking at the matter may influence the way we observe the phenomena. There are different paradigms which have been discussed in the social science framework. First one is the positivism. It is based on the work of the French philosopher Auguste Comte, who was the dominant scientific paradigm, which was the dominant scientific paradigm until the mid 20th century. It holds that the science or the knowledge creation should be restricted to what can be observed and measured, and the positivism tends to rely exclusively on the theories that can be directly tested. It means कि if we look into this paradigm, it focuses on basically the objective reality or the objectivity in the observation, and it basically focuses on that the reality is one and it is same for everybody. And if we have to make any discipline science, in that case, the overall focus should be on the objective observation of the stimulus or the phenomenon in the environment. And it does not focus on the multiplicity of the reality, or it, it does not focus on the, the differences in the perception about the reality. The another approach which which emerged in reaction to the positivism was the post-positivism. The frustrations with the strictly empirical nature of the positivist philosophy led to the development of the post-positivism or the postmodernism during the mid-late 20th century. Basically, this approach argues that one can make reasonable inferences about a phenomenon by combining empirical observations with the logical reasoning. It views the science uh, as not certain. In place of certain, it talks about the probabilistic, based on many contingencies, and often seek to explore these contingencies to understand social reality order. Basically, it focuses on key we are not focusing on the objective reality, and in place of the objective reality their focus is on the different type of environmental variable which are able to influence the objective reality, and they focus on the fact that the same stimulus or the same phenomena can be interpreted by the different people in the different way based on their own experiences with that stimulus or that phenomenon. Okay, in this case, further they have divided themselves into the subjectivist who view the world as the subjective construction of our own subjective minds rather than an objective reality. And the other camp, critical realist, who believe that there is an external reality that is independent of the person's thinking, but we can never know such reality with any degree of certainty because we are not aware about the level of the person thinking, the way of the person thinking, and what are the other factor or their past experience have influence, how it has influenced the person's experiences of the present or the person's experiences of the past. The other notion which have also influenced the paradigms of the social research is the ontology and epistemology. Basically, it started with the work of the Burrell and Morgan in 1979, and basically they focused on कि we can study the social phenomena from the different assumptions of the ontology and epistemology. Ontology basically refers to how we see the world, and the epistemology basically talks about the theory of the knowledge. And both ontology and epistemology basically they shape our way of way of looking at the phenomena or the social order. For example, ontology basically talks about how the the incidents or how the different phenomena they occur into the social setting or what is the pattern of their change in the social setting. While in the case of epistemology, basically it focuses on how the phenomenon exist in the best way in the social order, and we are having the different approaches to study the social reality or the social order. Using these two sets of the assumptions, we can categorize the social science researches as belonging to one of the four categories. The another part of the paradigm in the social research is the functionalism and interpretivism. Basically, they study patterns of the order, event, or the behavior and believe that the best way to study such a world is using the objective approach, which is independent of the person conducting the observation and interpretation, such as by standardized data collection tools like the survey. Okay, then they are adopting the paradigm of the functionalism. Basically, functionalism focuses on the way of doing the research is unaffected by the who is doing the research. It means the researcher is not having very involving role or very engaging or the committed role in the process of the research, and basically the researcher is independent of the process of doing the research. While in the case of the interpretivist paradigm, the researcher is very much part of the research. He is actively engaged in the process of the research, and his personal views, his personal way of handling the things, looking the things are basically the part of the research or the basically the conduction process of the research. In this way, all these two basically paradigms are basically antagonistic to each other. Like basically the functionalism and the interpretivism basically they proceed the basically the two types of the way of doing the research like the qualitative or the qualitative research in the social sciences. If researchers believe that the world consists of the radical change and seek to understand or enact change using the objectivist approach, okay, then they are employing a radical structuralism paradigm. And if they wish to understand the social change using the subjective perspectives of the participant involved, okay, then they are following a radical humanism paradigm. Okay, to date, the majority of the social science research has evaluated the natural science as followed the functionalist paradigm, which I have discussed in the earlier slides. Okay, the functionalists believe that the social order or the pattern has can be understood in terms of their functional components and therefore attempt to break down a problem into the small components and studying one or more components in detail using the objectivist techniques such as the surveys and the experimental research. However, with the emergence of the post-positivist thinking, a small but the growing science researchers are attempting to understand the social order using the subjectivist techniques such as the interviews and the ethnographic studies. Okay, basically further, in the coming slides, I will be talking about the quantitative and the qualitative method. My focus will be on the quantitative method first, and in the next presentation, I will be talking about the quantitative methods in detail. Here I am giving you the idea of the how the quantitative methods differ from the qualitative methods and what are their advantages and the disadvantages. Okay. In the case of the quantitative methods, basically it involves the collection and analysis of the data that can be presented numerically or codified and subject to the statistical testing. Here, the focus is in the quantitative research, the focus is on the way we collect the data, it should be in the numerical form. We shall be able to codify that data and we can subject our data to the statistical testing. Its primary role is to allow the collection, analysis, and the development of the understanding and interpretation of the data on the social phenomena from the large group and the large data source. It means that in the quantitative research method, we try to collect the data from a large sample, and on the basis of that data analysis, we try to study the social phenomena on a larger sample and try to conduct the research. Okay, the quantitative research is commonly associated with the standard Western research scientific methods. Okay, but this association is limited to the shared use of the statistical analysis to demonstrate and measure association between different concepts. In the quantitative method, with the help of the correlational analysis, with the help of the regression analysis, we try to see or we try to measure the association between the different concepts and how they affect each other, how the different variables are interrelated, and what is their order of relationship. The quantitative methods can be incorporated into the large number of the methodology. The major quantitative methods include gathering data through surveys, questionnaire, and structured interview. And now I will be talking a bit about the assumptions underlying the quantitative methods. The focus in the quantitative methods is on they perceive that the reality is objective. It means it has been the focus of the functionalist approach as well. According to them, the reality is objective out there, and the reality is independent of the researcher. It means the researcher is not having any significant role in the research process, and basically he is very much indifferent to the process of the research. Okay, therefore the reality is something that cannot that can be studied objectively. The researcher should remain distant and independent of what is being researched, and the values of the researchers do not interfere or become the part of the research. It means, according to this approach, the research is basically value free. Value free means the researcher is is not having any say or any interference in the process of the research, and basically it strictly sticks to the we can say uh, the assumptions or basically the paradigms of the natural science methodology. Research is based primarily on the deductive forms of the logic, and theories and hypotheses are tested in a cause-effect order. The goal is to develop generalization that contribute to theory that enable the researchers to predict, explain, and understand some phenomena. The ultimate purpose of the quantitative methods is to develop generalization. Basically, they focus on the nomothetic way of looking at the results or the conclusions, and basically they try to generalize the things findings. Okay, and rather than talking about the idiographic ways of looking at the human behavior, their focus is more on the generalization of the results and the findings. Okay, here are some of the differences. Oh, sorry. Here I am talking about the quantitative research and basically the approaches to the experimental design. The type of the design and what type of the quantitative methods which can be used into a particular type of the research design. Okay, for example, if if the type of design is the descriptive, okay, in that case the focus will be on the observation. Okay, what is the variables, okay, and what are the variables which are controlled or the not controlled. Here the common study designs are the comparative descriptive design, cross sectional design, longitudinal design. If we are going for the correlation type of the research, in that case, the quantitative methods which can be used here is the descriptive, correlational design, predictive design, model testing type of the design. In case of the quasi-experimental design, okay, the variables can be the test for the causality with the suboptimal variable control, independent variables not manipulated. Okay, here the focus is on the pre and post test designs, post test design only, and the interrupted time series design. In the case of the experimental type of the pure experimental type of the research, here the variables basically we test for the causality, okay, and the independent variable is manipulated. Okay, the common designs are the basically the classical experimental design, the randomized design, crossover design, and the nested designs. Okay, uh, here we have discussed the different examples of the quantitative research and what type of the study design we can implement in the different type of the designs. Here basically in this slide I will be talking about how the qualitative methods differ from the quantitative methods on the basis of the characteristic of the study. For example, if we talk about the data collection and the instrument, in the case of the qualitative research, we we use the interview method, observation method, and the documentary survey. But in the case of the quantitative research, the focus is on the questionnaire method. If we talk in terms of the structure of the instruments, okay, here interview schedules with the open question or the sequences of the topic and the subtopics, observation schedule, shut up the concept and the empirical schedule. But in the case of the quantitative research, here the focus is on the standard set of the questionnaires with the structured questions. In the case of the questionnaire or in case of the quantitative research, basically all the response categories are fixed in advance and the respondent is not having any freedom to go beyond the options given to him. But in the case of the qualitative structures of the instruments, here the subject is having very much freedom to express his or her own idea, okay, beyond the framework. Here, with respect to the kind of data record, basically here in the case of the qualitative method, what we receive is the basically text and the narratives, okay, audio, visual, media, and the information about the person's own personality, bibliographic, and the documentary type of the research, okay. But in the case of the quantitative research, basically the focus is on the multiple choice question or the we can say the uh, different option type of the question, and we are not having much more focus on the open-ended type of the questions. Okay, the another characteristic is the mode of the data processing. In the case of the mode of the data processing, basically in the case of the qualitative research, okay, we gather the data with the interview method. With the help of the interview, we try to construct the dossier of the person. We try to analyze the qualitative data which we have recorded. But in the case of the quantitative technique, here We try to understand the data with the help of the statistical analysis, with the help of the review of the data and the trend of the data. The another characteristics which basically differentiates the qualitative and quantitative method is the data analysis technique, which is the last one. Okay, here the focus is on the explanation. In the case of the qualitative analysis, the focus is on the explanation of the narrative structure of the text, okay, the conceptualization and interpretation of the images and the sounds. But in the case of the quantitative research, the focus is on what are the variables which we are studying, how they are interrelated to the other variables, how they differ from the another variable. We focus on the univariate, bivariate, or the multivariate type of the analysis. In all these ways, basically the qualitative methods differs from the quantitative method, and they are having their own advantages and the disadvantages, which are very much, we can say, beneficial for the particular type of the researches we do in the social sciences or in the physical sciences or the pure sciences. The another classification of the research design has been given by the Pollitt and the Hungler in the 1999. Here, they have divided the overall patterns of the quantitative and the qualitative design into different categories. In the case of the quantitative design, it can be experimental or the non-experimental, while in the case of the qualitative design, we can go for the three types of the study. First one is the phenomenological, ethnographic study, and the grounded theory. Okay. In the case of the quantitative design, it can be experimental, true experimental, quasi-experimental, or the pre-experimental. In the case of the non-experimental, it can be the survey, correlational, ex post facto studies, comparative, evaluative, or the methodological type of the studies. In this way, the quantitative methods also differ from the qualitative method. The another way of looking at the quantitative and the qualitative research is from the point of view of the purpose, their approach, their sample. If we look the difference between qualitative and quantitative research from the angle of the purpose is, the purpose of the quantitative research is to test the hypothesis or the specific research questions, while in the case of the qualitative research techniques, the focus is on discovering the ideas used in the exploratory research. Okay, if we look the differences from the perspective of the approach, here the focus is on the measure and test, while in the case of the qualitative research, the focus is on the observe and interpret. Okay, again, from the point of view of the data collection and approach, here the focus is on the structured response categories provided. It means the options are fixed and subject is required to take one option out of many. But in the case of the qualitative research, the respondent is having very much freedom to give answer in the way he or she thinks, and there is no limit of the words or the space or the way of answering the things. Okay. The another very much important point is the research independence. Okay, as I have discussed earlier, is key the in the case of the quantitative research, researcher is not involved in the actual process of the data collection or in the process of the data administration. His involvement is very much, we can say, indifferent, and in this way the data we are collecting, the result we are getting, they are very much objective, while in the case of in the qualitative methods, the researcher is intimately involved and results are very much subjective in the way that they are very much affected by the researchers way of interpreting the phenomena, way of looking at the stimulus, way of looking at the reality. Okay, in the case of the quantitative method, the sample can be large and very much it is possible to make generalization from the result, while in the case of the quantitative method, the sample size is very small and it gives very specific advantage. Okay, for the studies, if we are interested in making the case study type of the methods, for that the qualitative type of research type of the designs are very much important. The another difference can be made from what type of the research design we are descriptive. In the case of the quantitative, the focus is on the descriptive and the causal research design, while in the case of the qualitative research, the focus is on the exploratory research design. Okay. I will be talking a bit about the qualitative methods. Okay. The key task of the qualitative research is meaning making, a process that does not usually require statistics or the large scale data. Instead, the key focus is in the qualitative research tend to be on the smaller units of the people and the society, with the method and analysis drawing out the meaning, perceptions, understanding that individuals and the group attach to behavior experiences in the social phenomena. The qualitative research is adaptable to a broad range of the methods and the data sources. Basically, in the case of the qualitative research, the focus is on the subjective approach. Okay, here the researcher tries to understand and interpret experiences by looking at the world or the phenomena through the eyes of individuals being studied. It means that the researcher is very much part of the research and his own understanding of the phenomena, his own perception of the phenomena or the stimulus of the study is very much pertinent, and he is able to influence his own way of thinking on the study. And there are different methods, okay, which are the part of the qualitative method. They are the observation method, they are the focus group method, they are the unstructured interview method. Okay, in this slide, basically I have talked about how the scientific paradigm have emerged, how the scientific paradigm has been used in the social sciences, and how the different paradigms in the social sciences have emerged over the period of time, and how they have contributed to the difference of the qualitative research and the quantitative research method in the social science. And in the next slide, in the next presentation, I will be talking about what and why of the data analysis and a bit about the data screening process. Thank you very much, dear participants.